Oh,
Okay, everybody, smile. All right, well, thanks everyone for joining us today for the Millcraft Meetup. We're pretty excited today to be talking to Field Notes, but first of all, I wanted to thank our co-sponsors, which is Domtar, who are the makers of Cougar and Lynx and Husky, which you might be familiar with. So on the call today, I believe we have Tammy Tufty, who is the content and communications manager. And then we have our Meredith Collins, who's our customer service marketing manager. And I don't know if I saw him yet, but David Beebe, who calls in our market, who's a senior account manager for Domtar that we work with at Millcraft. So thank you guys for making this happen for us. And I'm going to introduce Bryan. So Bryan is a self-proclaimed man without a title. So he is a designer, photographer, customer service rep, a film gaffer, a retail clerk, a tour guide, a hand model, and all of those things he does at the Field Notes brand, which is part of the Coudal partners in Chicago. So we're really happy to have him here to talk about the Field Notes story and tell us what's new with Field Notes. We're all big fans of Field Notes and, of course, paper. So we're all ears, Bryan.
Thank you. I have a keynote excuse me, presentation that I will launch in a moment here, and it's a lot, but I'll try to go through it quickly. We'll definitely do a Q&A at the end. Let me see if I can get that started here. I've suddenly forgotten how computers work. And then, there we go. So what's going on here? And I lost my mouse.
don't worry about it, Bryan. We've done one of these and we always have tech issues.
I know, as soon as oh wait, there we go, down. My mouse isn't showing up on my, wait, there it is, nope, nope. Oops, there we go. And then play. There we go, I think that's working, right? You can see my first title there.
Yeah, I was on mute.
Okay.
Yes, we're good.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so yeah, as Terry said, we don't really have titles, and someone called me the creative director in the advertisement for this event. So maybe I am the creative director. I'll take it. Maybe I get a raise. I'm Bryan Bedell. I work at Field Notes in Chicago, Illinois. We have been making these notebooks for 13 or 14 years, I think since 2007. Before that, I'm going to kind of tell you the history of how we ended up doing that. We were there we go. We were a advertising agency called Coudal Partners, which was started in, I think, probably like 1994, 1995 by Jim Coudal, which was a small agency doing mostly advertising and identity work. And this is Jim Coudal in an undated stock photo. He and I have both aged a little. Jim came from a sports radio advertising background, and so he kind of came and started his own agency and took some of the clients, I think, from, and clients that he met from working in sports radio, and really focused on the design and on, client relationships and not on growth. This was like in the mid 90s, and everyone was trying to start a small agency and sell it off to Leo Burnett. And I think he was careful to just kind of build up some good relationships, have a small staff that really worked well together. And I think that was a really big part of why we did well. We kind of ended up getting some really good work and not having to really go out and hunt for it so much, not so much business development, mostly just doing work we liked. So right when I started, we were working on the Houston Astros identity. This would have been 1998, I guess. And that was kind of just getting wrapped up as I started. But I got to work on it a little bit, and getting to see the final product of that, getting to see actually your people walking around wearing your jersey and see the Astros on TV wearing something you worked on was pretty amazing. That was new to me after my earlier jobs. And then all through that time, starting in 98 until 2007, my main job there was working on Blackhawks, on the Chicago Blackhawks identity and all their marketing stuff. So that was, this was their 2003 season ticket brochure, and we'd kind of do a different look for them every year. So this is some other stuff from 2003, newspaper ad and the media guide and their tickets. And we would kind of, every year would go through and do a whole different look for them. And that was a nice project, again, just to see everything out in the world, to see your billboards and your TV ads and everything. And then we did a lot of restaurant work. There's a chain in Chicago called Let Us Entertain You that would start small restaurants and then often sell them off to bigger companies as a national chain. So we kind of developed a lot of stuff for Corner Bakery, and then that kind of went national and became a really big job for us, as well as some of the other Let Us Entertain You jobs. And then not everything was that high profile. There was a cattle ranch called 44 Farms in Texas that was actually one of the Astros owners, had this sort of side business as a cattle ranch. And it just, coming into it, it was such a boring job, but it was, he was a baseball guy, and they would just do these catalogs, like huge, thick catalogs of just hundreds of bulls and their family trees and their statistics and like their, fat measurements and their weight. And, and it just was this big statistical thing where they're selling these bulls for millions of dollars, or even selling unborn calves for tons of money, or just this crazy business that was so boring from the outside. But I was like, hey, you're a baseball guy. Look at this. Look at these stats. Look at these. You have a picture. I mean, all the cows look the same to me, or all the cattle look the same to me. But to the people looking at them, like, you're printing these pictures anyway. Why not make a set of baseball cards instead of a catalog this year? So we kind of talked them into that, and that was kind of an interesting way to handle this really kind of boring project and make it into something that actually was interesting and attention-getting. So around that same time, we started a website thinking, well, we'll put our portfolio online, as one does, to get more work. And it turned into kind of a primitive weblog before there was even blogging software or anything like that. And we have never actually got around to posting our portfolio, but we started getting all these followers checking our site every day, and added features like the MOOM, which was the Museum of Online Museums, which would kind of justify our goofing around on the internet all day. We would find these other websites of either museums or sort of interesting collections of things, and we would catalog those. And then we were spending so much time doing that, we're like, how can we monetize this? So we kind of did a pitch, like an NPR pitch, like support the Museum of Online Museums and get a mug or a tote bag or whatever, stuff like that. So we started bringing a little bit of money doing things like that. And, so we had thousands of people a day coming onto our site to check our blog, and we were posting about other design events or design people, or, even just movie trailers or anything that seemed interesting to us. And we hired a copywriter named Steve Delahoyd, and he was making these goofy kind of early, this was before YouTube even, but just making these goofy short films with his friend in Iowa. And we hired him as a copywriter, but we realized he was a good filmmaker and how to make this like 10 or 15 minute long movie about our company. It was a silly, the premise was that he came to work for us as a copywriter and none of us could read. And it was really a trick just to get him to do all of our reading and writing for us. So that's on the Coudal site if you want to watch that. It's about 10 minutes long. But, that was kind of, we were paying all these other people. This was still 90, 99, 2000 maybe. We were paying all these people to do film production for us, and we realized we could make a film ourselves. And again, to monetize that, we started working on another film called 72, which was going to be this sort of epic period piece set in 1972 in a computer lab. And we started trying to source old computer parts to build a set and everything, and asked for supporters for that. And this was before Kickstarter or anything. We kind of asked people, send us $20 and we'll send you a copy of our first film and a copy of the script and this punch card and everything. And this, you can see the DVD case there is kind of a goofy case that we got. And AOL, if you remember back then, AOL would send you 3 or 4 times a week a CD to install AOL on your computer. And we liked that case, and we couldn't find them for sale anywhere. So we found the manufacturer in Europe and ordered a pallet of them. And that turned into another business, which was jewel boxing, where no one was making the perforated inserts for these weird cases. So we started selling those in a kit with the cases. And so we're doing more and more of these sort of entrepreneurial design things, and less and less client work at this point. this guy Jake, who was using our jewel box cases to sell CDs of bands. He would make a deal with the band to record their show live and then sell their CDs in a van after the show. And he wanted to do better packaging, so he actually was familiar with Coudal also and asked us to do design for him. And it turned out he was working with the Pixies, who were probably my favorite band of all time. And so we suddenly found ourselves doing these live Pixie CDs, which was just an amazing experience. Got to go see them a million times. Got to design one of their tour t-shirts that's in the background there. So this was all just awesome. Like, we were doing less and less kind of boring design for clients and more weird stuff for ourselves that was actually paying off. We did the same thing using this jewel boxing system for Dead Can Dance for their American tour, and I actually put an LP out for them. And then another project we started up was called Layer Tennis, which was we would get 2 designers and a commentator, which might be a design blogger or a writer or just someone we thought was interesting, to come in and kind of narrate these 2 designers. So on Friday afternoon, one designer would post at, I think it was at noon, one designer would post this image. The next designer would get 15 minutes to add something to it or modify it or whatever, and that would go on all day through 10 rounds. And this is, I think this video will work. Let me see if I can play this. Yeah. This is kind of an example of 1 season's worth of stuff that Steve animated. But you can see we ended up getting some pretty big name designers and guys from Threadless. Frank and Kate.
Thank you. You're welcome.
It was sponsored by Adobe, and it originally started off being called, let me turn there's audio on that, right? It was originally called Photoshop Tennis, and Adobe started sponsoring it and giving us like a bunch of money to actually do it. And they wanted to change the name to Layer Tennis so people would use Photoshop and Illustrator and InDesign, and even there's some video in there even. Jennifer Daniel, God, she's amazing. So anyway, that gives you an idea of it. So anyway, so yeah, so that got bigger and bigger, and we started getting some really big names and making all these friends and more friends in the design world who were asking to do this. And this is a guy named Aaron Draplin who played Layer Tennis a few times and actually I think won 2 seasons. And then we also we were asking our writer friends to send us the stories about their favorite book to read in the summer, and we did that every summer. We do a series of summer reading kind of reviews, and then that turned into a book that we did with posters by Bird Machine and Aesthetic Apparatus and Spike Press. And so we're selling all this stuff on our site. All of a sudden, we're kind of turning into almost kind of like an online wholesale reseller, and started a thing called the Swap Meet, where people would send us something they made because we were blogging, here's this book we like, here's this movie we like, and people started realizing it was a good place to get some free publicity. So people would send us their t-shirt or poster or, jewelry or anything they made. And we were getting this big backlog of stuff that we didn't know what to do with. So we started sending it back to people. So if you send us a t-shirt, we might send you someone else's poster. And this turned into a huge thing where, every day we would update a few new items and send them back out to people. And then again, we realized we were doing all this postage and all this work and not making any money off of it. So we talked to some of the people that were sending things in and had them, why don't you make 100 of these or make 1,000 of these, and we'll see if we can sell them. These are some of the Swap Meet examples. This is Highball Records, which was tied to the Cocktails, who did the music. We used their music for our film. So again, like just making all these friends and having them, they keep recurring in this story, which is great. Kate Bingham and Bert, who played Layer Tennis, would do these zines about everything she bought every day, illustrations of all the things she bought. So she did a special edition of her zine for us to sell on the Swap Meet. This is Marianne Bontes did a print. And by this time we had this whole back end, this whole shopping cart on our site and a warehouse full of weird stuff. And, I think at that point we had one full-time person like packing jewel boxes all day and sending out the stuff, rolling up posters into tubes. And so we started thinking, like now that we're doing this as much as we're doing design, we should really start focusing on this and find a couple of these that are the ones that work. And again, this weirdo came back into our life and Aaron Draplin sent us a couple copies of this notebook he'd made himself. This is the very first edition of Field Notes that he made on a Gakko printer in his studio. And we thought, oh, those are neat. Why don't we sell those on the swap meet? He has a huge collection of old notebooks, like drawers and drawers full of these old notebooks, and kind of was a fan of these. And so Field Notes came out of that. He did a run of, I think, 1,000 to sell on the swap meet, 1,000 packs, and we sold those out almost immediately. And we decided to start a company and actually focus on that a little more. So this was 2007, I think, where Field Notes became an actual official company. So it's a joint venture between Field Notes and Draplin, DDC. And this was our the first kind of mass-produced Field Notes that we were selling on the swap meet. We weren't advertising at all, but Aaron had a following, and we had this huge following of designers that checked our site every day, so it took off pretty quickly. And then also we were printing, we're using all American, made in USA materials and manufacturing everything in the US, and that sort of resonated with people. And I think it was also just from a design perspective, I think Aaron's whole appeal is he's sort of, Midwestern and hairy and wears a trucker cap. And I think a lot of designers that were always sort of maybe didn't feel like part of the design community, because the design community tends to be real arty and urban and European or whatever, kind of like identified with Aaron. So kind of took off right away. Within a year or so, we were making a few different versions with different body papers. And then we decided, hey, let's just try some different color paper covers. So I think I know those orange ones on the right there were the first colors we ever did. And I think we did 5,000 packs of those, and they sold out within a day or two. And someone wrote to us and said, hey, you should do a subscription, so we make sure we don't miss out on any of these. And that kind of gave us an excuse to, this is one of our subscription boxes that Dan Black from Landland designed for us. But that kind of put us on this path of, we have to do a new product every quarter and make it interesting and send it out to all these subscribers. And that worked out really well. It kind of got us really focused on Aaron having this, going back to oops, going the wrong way here. Still going the wrong way. How do you go backwards? Way off now. There we go. We have this template that Aaron designed where the logo's there, the size is this, the paper is this. There's not a whole lot to work with there, so let's try using different papers, different printing techniques. We started doing some foil stamps, started letterpressing some of them because it was a small enough run that, like, this guy Dan Barron out in the boonies near Chicago could print them in his basement. And we got really interested, and I had always been interested in sort of the history of design and looking back at all these mid-century notebooks and how were they printed. And rather than like this aesthetic judgment of, what school of design was it? What are the, what's the imagery? We started looking more and more at how were they produced? How were they printed? What mistakes were made? What is it about them, about the actual object and the ephemera that makes it interesting? And I think that kind of pushed us in the right direction to really do some interesting things with it, rather than, we couldn't redesign it every time. So finding these new directions to push it in were working out great for us. So this is just some example of limited editions. This is the National Crop Edition, which was a clamshell 6-pack box. It came with like a poster of, it was the top 6 crops. So it's like wheat, sorghum, rice, corn. I can't remember them all now, but there was one book for each with like statistics about that crop on the back, and it came with that little patch, and it came with a big poster showing the crop distribution around the country. And again, sticking to the rural roots of Aaron's old collection of all these, most of these books are agricultural or industrial books that were used for promotional materials. This was America the Beautiful, which was sort of, we wanted to kind of convey the idea of old highway maps and things like that. And we actually, it came with a water transfer decal that was printed by a company in California that used to make Disney's old water transfers. So, it was still, made in USA, kind of historic, but also looking at details like we actually went to the printer and said, can we print with a 120 line screen? Like, early cruddy 4-color printing was done with 120 line screen. And they're like, I don't know if we can even do that with our RIP. And, and then we wanted to knock it out of register on purpose. You can see around the D there is so we're on press, like, we're there at the press check with the pressmen, like, going, no, knock it more out of register. And they're like, what is wrong with you guys? But, when you go back and look at it, it really, I think, the white border on the bottom there with the black type was kind of like, a lot of the books would have a white border that, like, the local dealer could imprint their logo on, or their address and phone number. So, we really took a lot from these old books. And I think that attention to detail and really understanding the printing and the manufacturing as much as the design, you know, has served us well. This is another one of my favorites, Night Sky, which showed the summer constellations across the back of 3 books, and the stars were printed in holographic foil. We were originally trying to do it in glow in the dark and couldn't figure it out, but we ended up figuring it out later for another edition. This is Drink Local, which was like the subscribers sometimes get a bonus. So in this case, it was a 6-pack carrier to hold your 6-packs in that Aaron designed, you know, which was a fun, again, like getting into like crazy die cuts and finding weird packaging. And these were letterpress coasters that came with it for the 2 different packs for ales and lagers. And then using different materials, this is what kind of paper? Geez. Oh my God, I'm looking out. Anyway, actually paper made from wood, from cherry wood, sorry, from cherry. It's cherry. It's almost like the same thing they do for laminate on furniture. They shave a very thin veneer of the paper off and then laminate it to paper, to real paper, to craft paper in this case. And we used that for the covers, and that was one of our limited editions, and actually turned into a regular edition for a while too. And you know, again, just anything we could do using different papers, and then in this case using gilded edges, which we had to go down to Indianapolis to a Bible printer to get the edges gilded, and that was just, again, getting to go to all these different vendors and meet them and see how they work was amazing and super educational and fun. And then this might be my all-time favorite one we worked on. This is Stephanie and Jim from Hamilton Wood Type Museum in Two Rivers, Wisconsin. And we were sort of fans of wood type and had talked to them a little bit and really wanted to do something with them, and went up to visit a bunch of times. And so Aaron, Matt, and I typeset, you know, by hand with wood type and metal type, I think 7 different forms of just sort of random art, just based on what we could find around their studio. And then Jim printed the covers using those. So we had 4 different colors of paper, 3 different inks, and our 7 different forms, which led to a couple thousand different variations of the Two Rivers field notes, which just, of all the jobs we've done, this is the one that when I see it, it's like exactly what I pictured in my head. Like it came out exactly how I wanted. I'm so happy with it. And you know, so subscribers would get 2 packs, and like, you know, I said, there are thousands of possible variations, and even if you got 2 that were the same color, like with wood type, you kind of get a little bit of variation in there. So it was just really personal and unique, and I was just so happy with this edition. Here's a few more. You can see the different colors. You know, again, this was all done with just 2 colors of ink, 3 colors of ink, and 4 different papers, and we got such a neat variety out of it. And then I will hype Domtar a little more later, but I got to mention French here. We work with French a lot, and one day in the mail I got a package from Brian French with this in it, and this is this was their craft tone line before anyone else knew about it. He sent me samples of all the paper before they had a swatch book made, you know, and he's like, I thought you guys might want to use this paper before anyone else, and I was like, damn right you do. This was the swatch book for craft tone after it came out. I mean, we like to use colored paper if we can for covers because it just wears more interestingly. I'd always rather print on a red paper than print red on a white paper. You know, if you know, when the ink starts wearing off, that red shows through. It looks so much better. With our cut corners and everything, it's just like if the corners start wearing out, instead of getting a big white puff on the corner, you get a color at least. It's just, you know, there's so many papers out there, and just to print 4-color and white all the time seems like such a missed opportunity to us. So we really enjoy colored paper. So this is the workshop companion set that came out of that. It was 6 different books, another box set that came out of the craft tone edition for woodworking, painting, gardening, plumbing, auto repair, and woodworking, or no, what is the other one? Electrical. And, you know, again, with facts about each thing in the back, but essentially it's just a blank notebook. We do custom jobs. We do, you know, maybe about 100 of these a year now for just companies that want promotional notebooks. So we do a lot of work for that. We've done some really interesting worked with some neat companies on that. For trade shows, we do a lot of books. This is a trade show called XOXO in Portland. I'm not a trade show, I'm sorry. This is a design conference in Portland called XOXO. And their theme this year was mistakes. This was in 2015, maybe. And so we kind of looked at every mistake we'd ever made or every bad messed up press sheet we ever had and tried to find all these ways to purposefully screw them up. The grid on the inside is like wavy and off center and out of line. That you can see it says OKBBCP 814 on it. That's because the edition before this I had signed off on a press sheet, and our printer delivered the books, a couple weeks later. And the first box we opened up, the first pack right on top had my sign off on one of the books in the shrink wrap, which is like the odds of finding that, let alone being in the first box we opened. I almost felt like they did it on purpose, but Tom swears they didn't. But just all these goofy things that had happened to us over printing, we kind of worked that into an edition just to go crazy. And then we do a lot of custom retail collaborations. We've done them for LL Bean, Nixon watches, Ingersoll watches, several for Starbucks, Carhartt, Abercrombie and Fitch, Levi's, Canada Goose. We just did one for Third Man Records, which was really great. And then back to the limited editions. This is the Lunacy edition, which was the same, had a 4-color fly sheet with a different die cut in each cover, so you had a full moon and a half moon and a crescent moon. This is the dime novel edition, which is another kind of fun thing. We get into that, we'll just find something interesting. And in this case, it was these dime novels that the Beadle brothers published in the mid 1800s. And again, it was like this big technology change. Like there were these new printers out that could print much more quickly and turn things around faster. And they were able to take these books that it was kind of the early paperback book and make these really cheap paperback books. And we just got so interested in that whole concept. We ended up going out to, there was a big collection of them at Northeastern Illinois University. And we went out and like really talked to me. We make a film with each edition. So we did an interview with this guy that's an expert in it and kind of really dug down into it and found, a paper that was similar to their original. And it's funny, like the decisions, like that orange paper they used was probably just what they had sitting around. It was like leftover paper from another job. And then that turned into this iconic dime novel thing where other companies that were making dime novels were probably paying a premium for orange paper to copy the success of their orange paper. Then this was called the Coastal edition, which was, getting trickier with printing. This was 2 different foil stamps, that metallic gold and a sort of a teal colored foil stamp showing the 3 books made up the coastline of the East Coast. And then there was a West Coast edition too. And then that was gray paper, and then the white was printed digitally. So again, that was going through 3 different presses 3 different times. Like our printers really like working with us and like doing the interesting work, but we always make it hard on them for sure. Then this was another collaboration with Wilco, the band. We did 6 books where Aaron worked with Jeff Tweedy, and then we got 5 other artists to work with each of the other 5 musicians to come up with a different book for each musician in the band for a 6-pack. So that was a really fun one. This was the 3 missions edition, which was sort of the history of the Apollo, Mercury, and Gemini space missions that led up to the first man on the moon. And along with that, we made these paper craft models. These were actually printed on links. So there's a shout out to Domtar that came with the books. Like it came in a shrink wrap pack with these models you could punch out and build yourself. And that was another really fun, stepping way outside of anything I was comfortable with, using, cutting out models by hand over and over again until we got them right and getting the design just right. I just noticed, I'm trying to watch the comments a little bit. The space glove, I'm going to go back to that. The space glove, we make these films and we do all these I do all the product photography now, and I help Steve with the films, and we've ended up picking up all these weird skills. This is a deep dive, but I made that. That was a white glove I ordered from Amazon, spray painted it silver. The blue fingertips are from like just a rubber dishwashing glove. And then the other thing I actually sewed and printed out the stats. So, we've gotten really good at like making these weird props. If we go back to the Lunacy edition, we filmed this film for it where it looked like moon rock, or it looked like asteroids hitting the moon, and we just set it all up in a big sandbox. Like, I encourage you to go back and look at our films, and there's so much good stuff there. It's so crazy what we do on like very little budget, in this little room in the back of our office. It's pretty crazy. And then back to Domtar, this is our mile marker edition, which is on Domtar. We had kind of had the idea for a while. We were really into highways and traveling around America. The America the Beautiful edition was real similar to that, the highway map. And we wanted to do, the original idea was to do these 3, kind of road sign based ones. And we wanted to print Scotch Brite borders, and, you know, like, so it would actually reflect when car headlights hit it like a real sign. And we couldn't quite, we looked at Scotch-Brite, it would have cost just way too much. They didn't make a printer's foil with that. And we figured out we could print it on actual Scotch-Brite material. We could offset print onto that, but it was going to be, you know, it had ended up being $30 a book or whatever. So that wasn't going to happen. So we ended up using holographic kind of speckly foil for the reflective part, which worked out pretty well. There's the 3 different editions with the foil showing. And then again, we do subscriptions and we throw in bonuses for subscribers. So we did a map for the subscribers. And in this case, we actually made it available to everyone. So this was like the subscription box the subscriber would get. And here's the map. And along with, I mean, another one of these deep dive rabbit holes we're into is just subway maps. We're obsessed with subway maps. And we asked our friend Cameron Booth to he made this sort of map of the United States interstate, the Eisenhower interstate system as a subway map. And that was one side of the map it folded out, which is sort of useful, not really maybe the most useful way of depicting things if you're trying to find your way across the country, but it's visually really interesting. Showing, rather than the big cities being labeled on it so much, it's like the exits and it's all exits and terminals. So like maybe instead of New York, it's whatever the last stop on the highway is called in New York. And then the other side of it, we just went really nerdy, did a bunch of research and found, you know, wrote blurbs, you know, just the kind of stuff you'd find on a map. Like, here's all the different license plates from all the different states. Here's what different signs means and the you know, the meaning of different sign colors and shapes. We did you know, some history and how to change a tire, stuff like that. And then we did one of those huge grids you would always see on maps that showed you, you know, Albuquerque to Dallas would be however many miles, but we replaced all the cities with the dumbest city names we could find. So it's like, if you need to know how to get from Booger Hollow to Boner Creek, this is how many miles it is. And that was like I think it was 4 hours of going through Google Maps, figuring out the distances and putting them into a database. That was fun. And then like I said, we make a film every time. And like I said, we learn from that every time. In this case, we actually sort of pretty illegally hijacked a mobile rural road sign to put our ad up on it. And, you know, that's a skill as a designer you don't ever think you're going to have to figure out, is how to program a variable message sign. And then we had to shoot it. We could have probably just gone out and found one and shot it and digitally superimposed the screen on it, but we wanted to do it for real because we're insane. And there was a highway patrol station just over that hill there, and we were so free. It was pretty terrible, but we pulled it off and, you know, made a pretty neat film for this one. We liked the adventure. We were all wearing like I don't have a picture of it here, but we made Field Notes reflective vests to wear while we were doing it, just so if someone pulled over, we'd look like we were professionals. And then also sticking with the Domtar theme, right around this time last year, Matt and I were invited up to Domtar's Rothschild plant, which is up near Wausau, Wisconsin. And I will never pass up a chance to visit a paper mill, because I love, if you like watching how it's made or anything like that, like paper mills are right up your alley. And also my grandfather and dad both worked in a paper mill up in Maine. Like my grandfather for his whole life, and my dad worked there like before he went to college. And when I called my dad and said, "Oh, I'm going up to Wausau to see the Domtar mill," my dad said, "Oh, they're going to buy you a steak." And he was right. They did buy me a steak. It was very nice of them. We had a very nice dinner. But the Domtar plant was, you know, I've been to several paper plants and they're always interesting. Domtar was specifically interesting because they have converted the entire plant to biomass. If you look at the big building on the right in this picture is just full of truckloads and truckloads come in all day of just like paper and industrial waste that's all flammable. I think it's mostly bark and trees that you're taking out back from the plant and all this other stuff in there. They are recycling all this and not only making not recycling it, but burning it, not only to make power for the plant, but it actually powers, I think, a large part of the city, which is pretty neat. And it's also this is one of the biggest mills I've been to. I think it was most mills I've been to have a 72-inch, I believe, paper making machine, you know, that makes paper that's 72 inches wide. And I think theirs was 144. It was like double the width I'd ever seen. It was just such a huge machine. And just, I live for this. Like, I live for going to press checks and meeting all the people that are printing this stuff. And, you know, like everyone involved in this process is excited about what they do. And it's neat to go to a plant and just walk through and talk to people and have them explain to you what they do and see them get excited about it. And it's never pass up a chance to go on a tour of someplace like that. This is Amy from our printer, and Sam and Matt from Field Notes, and then that's Sam Ankeny from Domtar, and I think that's Kurt, right, Melberg from Domtar, up on that tower. If you go back to the last building, that really tall tower there, we're up on top of that. And Tom, our other printer, didn't want to go out there. We had drank a lot the night before, and Matt was feeling pretty queasy in that photo. You can tell too, it was pretty high up there. I see all the texts now are all everyone saying, I want a Domtar Miltar. And then we also got to go out and to see their logging operations. And, you know, there's always this perception that, you know, paper companies just go down and mow down these huge forests and turn them into trees. And it was neat to go out and see. They have people that just, you know, go out and track forestry and talk to local farmers and landowners. And they're going out and I mean, at least from what I saw, they're taking trees that have fallen. You know, in this case, there was a huge windstorm through Wisconsin, and they said for months they were just going through picking out trees that had fallen down in the windstorm, you know, within these people's property, and then, you know, they'll go back and dig them all up and cut them down and chop them up, and so, you know, they're not clear cutting anything. This is all done with wood that they're almost just picking up off the ground. Here's Matt standing with some logs that maybe you guys printed on since then this spring. And then Domtar, I don't know if any of you saw this, Domtar interviewed us for their Paper Matters magazine, which I still, Terry can clarify later, but I don't know if this ever came out for real in print or if it's going to, but it's available. I think the interview is available online, and they made a film too that I know there's at least a trailer online, but at some point that'll be coming out. So, you know, so it's been, you know, like Sam, we talk to Sam all the time. He's been a great rep. And, you know, we work with them through the, you know, the whole relationship of paper distributor and printer. You know, it's something in the paper or paper manufacturer, paper distributor, printer, all these ink vendors, and, you know, even Staples, like, get to know all these people and work with them, because there's a lot of stuff out there. And you know, to print 4-color and use silver staples, like, if there's something else you can do, don't do it just for the sake of doing it, but always know your options. You know, and a lot of times you can do something a lot more interesting, and it actually ends up being cheaper. I forgot to mention, wait, let me go close the window because someone's mowing outside. Sorry about that. That America the Beautiful edition, we wanted like kind of old yellowed paper, and we asked around and we found like our printer just had, yeah, back in the warehouse, we've got like 4 pallets of just this old C1S that's been sitting there for 10 years and we just haven't thrown it away yet. We're like, yes, let's use that. It's already pre-yellowed for us. It looked great, you know, and like, I think they didn't even charge us for it. It was just paper they were trying to get rid of. So there's always interesting things you can do that don't even cost more. It's so much easier to like, or so much more fun to seek out these, be adventurous and try some new things. You know, even if you're doing, you know, I was talking to someone one time and they're like, well, we do like those inserts in medical, you know, like you get in pills that 5,000 fold inserts that come out with all the, you know, and I'm like, even with that, like there's something like, don't print it in black, print it, you know, print it in maroon or something, like just do one, you know, maybe there's, I'm sure there's rules, but the more restrictions you have, the more it's like, you know, it's like a challenge to find what can I do that gets around these restrictions. Like for me as a designer, that's, you know, it's not about making it crazier or busier or making it more ornate, but if there's something that's expected, find a new way to do it, find a different way to do it. You know, break a rule, because you'll go nuts if you don't break at least one rule every time you do it, you know, and not at the expense of clarity or legibility or legality, but just, you know, just for your own sake. So this is Coudal Partners right now. There's 9 of us in that picture, but there's 10 of us full-time at the office now. Steve, the filmmaker, kind of started his own filmmaking business, so he still works with us, but part-time. And then Aaron Draplin, of course, is in Portland. But yeah, we're a real small team, and it's like, people are often surprised to hear that for how much of a footprint we have out there for Field Notes. It's just the 10 of us doing it. It's mostly, I mean, as Terry said at the beginning, we overlap jobs a lot, but we all do, most of us do a little design, most of us do a little bit of customer service, and we got a couple of full-time pack and ship people, a couple mostly salespeople and wholesale people, but it's a real small team. And I'll show you, I was hoping to do this from our office, but our office is just torn up. We've got packing stations everywhere now, and it's just a total mess. So I'm going to go with pictures here. This is our main space. We moved here 5 years ago, something like that, from the same building. We were up on the 3rd floor in the same building, and this space opened up, and we kind of cleaned it up and remodeled it a little and moved in there, and it's been great. It's just a nice big open space. You can see there's kind of the mezzanine. So this is kind of the view from my office up on the mezzanine, looking down at the main space and the main meeting table there. This is looking back towards the front door. You can see to the left there, the books on the shelves. That's our shop that's up in the front, so customers can come and buy in person right at our office. This is a sort of meeting area and library that we have, keep all of our design books. And then down in the bottom left there, you can see all our paper samples and ink samples. And then this is inside the shop. We sell everything we sell online, but we also usually keep we sell press sheets. Like a lot of our fans like to come in and actually buy the press sheets to frame in their houses. And then we do, obviously we're closed now for COVID, but we're open 9 to 5 weekdays. If you're ever in town after all this, we'd love to, like when the doorbell rings, we all, one of us will run downstairs, and it's just awesome to take a break from what you're doing and talk to a customer for a while. And then we do events in our office too. We'll do maybe 3 or 4 events a year for release parties or a holiday kind of marketplace or something like that. So a lot of chances to come through and see the studio. And then one last thing, we're doing okay on time, I guess, before Q&A. This is our current limited edition. So I just wanted to talk about this real quick. The United States of Letterpress. And this all came from working with Hamilton back a few years ago. Matt and I started going to their annual design conference every year, which is Ways Goose up in Two Rivers, Wisconsin, which is just the best conference. And I hate to even tell people about it because it's pretty small and it's just amazing people there. And I think if it got too big, it would be ruined, but that's one of my favorite events of the year. It's so perfect every year. And I'm really depressed it'll be online this year, but we'll make the most of it. But we've, like, from going to this conference every year, we've made friends with all these letterpress printers, and we've been looking to work with them. And now one of our limited editions is, 90,000 books sometimes, something like that, sometimes 100,000 books, which is a lot for someone, on a manually fed Chandler and Price from the, 1910 to print covers on. And we'd been looking for a way to work with some of these small printers that we had become friends with that we love so much. And Michelle hit on the idea, why don't we do a series where each of them prints 1 book in the set, out of a 3-pack, and then they won't have to print quite so many, and we can showcase more of them. So that became the United States of Letterpress. We talked to letterpress printers all over the country and picked out 9 printers that we wanted to work with, and they each did a book in a 3-pack. So there were 3 3-packs, and got to work with. This is Rick Griffith from Matter in Denver, and the one on the right's Aaron Beckloff from Miami of Ohio, who did the Pressing On Letterpress movie, which is a great film if you're interested in letterpress. Brad Vedder in the back from Louisville, who used to work at Chat Show Print. He does these great show posters. Judith from Full Circle Press in California. I think she's been around a while. She printed Steve Jobs business cards for Apple on letterpress. Jen Farrell from Star Shape, Mama Sauce, like just all these printers that we loved and hung out with and got to know a little bit and really wanted to work with. So this was our chance to work with them. And maybe it was such a logistical nightmare. We printed the covers. I mean, not a nightmare, but it was a lot of moving pieces. We printed the covers here. Lake County Press printed the covers in gray with our logo and the inside copy and everything. Then we cut them down to 2-up sheets and sent them off to all the printers. And so all these printers, we were so worried about how good the registration would be and, stuff getting lost and shipping and someone getting sick. And luckily everything worked out great. And again, this was another one that just came out exactly as well as we'd hoped for. Really happy with it. And we made, we make a film again with each edition, and I encourage you to look on our site and watch some of these films. This one was one of my favorites. The original plan was Steve and I were going to fly all around the country and interview these people, and we couldn't do that. So we asked them just to shoot footage while they were printing and send us some footage, and then we interviewed them on the phone and put it together. And we were worried it would be kind of slapdash, but it came out really well. It was surprising, just the message, that we got about this community of letterpress printers. It's such a neat, tight-knit community that really helps each other out. And I think it's a good story on top of just the art being amazing. So that's our current limited edition. It's available now, fieldnotesbrand.com. We do the subscriptions. We've started doing t-shirts with some editions, all the films, all of our regular editions, the crafts, the pitch black. We've got a good reporter's notebook, a steno pad. So, you know, our line's expanded out to this pretty serious amount of stuff. And again, just with 10 people. So, and, you know, 10 people plus the hundreds of paper and printer and people that, you know, support us that really make it what it is. And that's the end of the PowerPoint presentation. So I will close this out.
Bryan, that was pretty amazing. I have to say, very, very inspiring stuff.
Thank you.
I want to make sure you guys know, like, that you can definitely post questions in chat. If you'd like to ask Bryan a question, you can feel free to unmute yourself. Then I'm going to ask that you mute so that we can hear his answer clearly.
I miss mill trips and live music. Yeah, me too.
I do. So I do have a question. So what's been the biggest seller?
Well, the quarterly editions we make, you know, like, you know, more and more as time goes on, but now we usually make maybe, you know, I'm flaking out on numbers now, 30,000 packs. That seems high, but I think that's right. You know, because we just have, and, you know, and those, some of the early editions when we were just doing 5,000 packs or whatever might sell out within a day or two even. And, you know, and we started seeing them coming back up on the resale, on the, you know, the resale market, like on eBay. Some of those early ones now are selling for $600 or $700, which is insane to us. Like we never pictured anything like that happening. So, you know, so now we try to print enough just to make sure we have retailers that, you know, want to make sure all of our, you know, we have a huge, you know, huge chunk of our business is wholesale. We have thousands of retailers all over the world. So we want to make sure the retailers get them and make sure everyone that wants one gets one. So we print a pretty big run now. But then when those sell out, they're gone. So, you know, they're all sort of limited in how they sell. A few of those we've gone on and printed more of. We do one on Yupo called Expedition that's waterproof and tearproof. So we've been, you know, that started out as a limited edition, but it was real popular. We kept printing it. We did one called County Fair where there's a set for each state. So there's 50, we do Puerto Rico and DC now too. So there's 52 versions of that. And that was just such a huge nightmare of print production to do 52 different versions of it that we keep it in print. And now we do it digitally. It works much better doing it that way. So, I mean, over time of any edition, probably County Fair has sold more than any other edition just because we printed more. The regular craft books, the standard craft, graph, ruled, plain, we do a left-handed version now. You know, those continue to sell really well. We do pitch black, which is a little more expensive, fancier paper cover with, you know, a little more executive looking version of that, and that's good. You know, so it really isn't, there's not one, I would say, but we did, you know, I didn't even show it in here, national parks. We did national parks about a year ago, or a year and a half ago now. And national parks, yeah, have been selling great. And I'd say, and those were, you know, those were a limited edition too, that we've just continued reprinting, and we've added 2 new editions, and we're working on a 6th edition now. Of, you know, each 3-pack has 3 different parks on it, and we did it with 59 parks. I can't believe I didn't even put that in here. And that was a fun print job too, because we printed, rather than printing 4-color again, with all these cool posters that the artist of 59 parks had made, rather we didn't want to just reproduce them in 4-color. That seemed boring, so we print on colored paper, and then underprint white UV ink, and then print color on top of that. So if like the predominant color in a certain book is yellow, we'll print it on yellow paper, but if there's white, we'll print white on that. And if there's you know, say purple on it, where you can't print purple on yellow because it'll turn into mud, we'd print white under the purple. So it's, you know, this really, again, making things really complicated for our printers just to keep it interesting for ourselves. But I think it also really made the books more interesting than they would have been just printed 4-color on white paper. So I just want to reinforce, like, thanks Domtar, and never print on white paper.
So we should mention that Domtar actually donated several sets of books that we'll be giving away to the first 100 people who signed up and joined. So we will get those out to you lucky folks after the meetup. So I just wanted to let you know that some of you will get a surprise. I guess I ruined the surprise. It'll be a surprise if you get it. Thank you, Domtar.
I like the Kate Bergener said, I admire the commitment to a bit. If there's one thing we're all about, it's commitment to a bit. That's funny. The picture I was telling, there's the picture that Jim used from Field Notes for our Instagram to promote this event, and I'm going like this, and I have Helvetica written across my knuckles. and Helvetica's spelled wrong and the kerning's terrible and it's typeset in Futura. And Jim was like, oh, I just noticed like the joke is like, I mean, I don't know, I cracked myself up for an hour making it, but like HELL, I put that one L on each thing where like it didn't fit. Like I just did it the worst way you could possibly do it. And I actually want to get that tattoo, but I don't know if I could commit as deeply to the bit with the tattoo as that. A lot of love for reflective vests. Can never get enough reflective vests. Yeah, the press sheets, it's funny, like we never thought to save them at first. And then once I think we accidentally, I just grab, when I go to the press check, I would grab a couple and then we thought, hey, I bet we could sell these. And we put some out in the shop and people started snapping them up. So now like the one we did one with Jay Ryan from Bird Machine with glow in the dark ink. And like, like those we purposely printed 100 extra and had him sign them and things like that. So some of them we go out of our way to save them.
What's up?
Hey, Brian,
Mm-hmm.
I have a question for you. I love, first of all, your commentary about production and then the use of paper as part of this process and to really elevate the final results. I'm curious, as someone that's in our sample studio right now, and a little sample nerd, how important are getting samples and dummies? How does that work into your process?
I mean, like, getting that French swatches before the book came out, that was pretty exciting. Getting a new Swatch book is always, especially with colored paper, because there's really not, we use all made in USA paper, and it's really, there's not, Mohawk and Mohawk, Nina, and French, and a few other odds and ends, but that's really kind of all we have to choose from. So I got a bug here. So anytime a new Swatch book comes out with a couple of new colors in it, we're obviously going to jump right on that. We don't get, as far as just collecting ephemera and collecting samples of other things, like I think Mohawk does a good job of that with their magazine, like, giving you some good ideas. We've certainly, just all the paper swag you get, it's certainly, I don't know how much it directly leads to us doing something, but it all sinks in. I definitely see it when we get that stuff. French's sample stuff is always really neat. And, they're all, they've been working with CSA forever, and they have some amazing promo pieces. And I think French especially, I think 9/10 of their success is based on what a good job they do. They did marketing in 1993. Like 1989 to 1993 for French built everything they have now, just because they dumped tons of money into marketing and really made a place for themselves and got their name out there, and it just it's lasted until now. Definitely
have a cult-like status.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, as somebody in a alternate universe, side world,
Yeah.
I can appreciate. I have a subscription box as a side gig going on. It is a ton of work, and I know we did little journals very similar to the Coastal edition. I can't tell you the sheer number of mock-ups I had to do just to make sure that the heft of the paper, like, oh, am I going to use 70-pound text or 80-pound text? How does it lay? How many sheets?
Yeah.
How do you go through a lot of iterations, or do you guys have it down pat, like same page count?
It's funny. Yeah, that's a really good question. Something like I said, with those paper craft models, I made 1,000 of those. I had to make those over and over again. And I eventually rigged up like a vinyl cutter to cut them out most of the way, so I could punch them out, because I was getting so sick of cutting those things out. And I started with sort of a sketch of, I found some online that were sort of what I wanted, mutated them what I want, but it's like to get something like that right, and they still maybe could be better, but they're, you could work on it forever, but we only have 4 months to work on it. But so something like that, and then finding the right, trying it on a couple of different papers. Like once we had the die made, we tried some different papers to see what papers worked well. We don't typically get mock-ups made unless it's like a really new paper or a really new product we've never really done before. I know Christine from Active's watching, and they always send us mock-ups, which is nice because no one else ever does that.
Yeah.
But unless we ask for it. But I think it's something I tell, like if I talk to design classes, especially with these books, it hits home so hard that it seems like it's geometry and math to get it right. And you look at a book and you're like, okay, I measured, the book is 3.5 inches wide, so I center it here. And I mean, we very quickly learned that that is not the case. Like just the 3D, like it, it's 3D product design. It's not graphic design. And just a 1/16 of an inch off somewhere is going to make such a, then that knocks it twice as far off, like centering our logo. And then that goddamn registered trademark symbol like ruins it. Like it just, like we can, like I look at every book and it never looks, no matter where I put it, it never looks centered to me, and it makes me crazy. And we have a couple that are traveling salesman, one of our early ones, where we went to a real thicker paper. We used a thicker body paper, and it didn't occur to us that that was going to make the cover stretch out more, and your trim marks, you're cutting like more than a 1/16 past the trim marks when you actually trim the finished book, so the logo is way off center on that one. And with these limited editions, sometimes we don't, we start on them 4 months before they come out, so there's not a real huge turnaround on them. So sometimes you got to take a leap of faith, knowing, well, we'll burn through this, and then if we learn something from it, we'll know it for next time. And it's gotten to the point now where I can look at the paperweight I'm using for the the body and the cover and have a pretty good idea exactly where I should center that. And then we get proofs and check everything, and then I check it, and we go on Bindery, and we can nudge things around on Bindery, and it all works out. But it's never math or science. There's so much weird organic, like hands-on stuff. You got to get in there and cut it out and look at it and see what it looks like. Sometimes you design a whole book or something on screen, and then the first time you print it out, you're like, oh no, this isn't right at all. Like I never printed it, and the type just doesn't look right. Once it looked fine on screen, but you realize once you see it printed out that your margins are way off, and that's a bad habit to get into as a designer, is to get too far into something on a computer before you really look at it.
Okay, as paper people, we love to hear you say that. The swatch book's behind me, but because I do think it's very different when you are, designing and you're in your digital, you're on your screen, and then the physical manifestation of that. I do think, it's dummies or mock-ups are super, super helpful, and especially when you get into the packaging side of things. But I just love it. Even for me, I don't know, I find that the tactility, like there's some of those papers can be so nuanced and feel like vellum. And I mean, vellum is in toothy as opposed to transparent. Right. Depending upon the maker, it can just feel differently, and that can lend a different vibe to the overall piece. So I don't know, I find that handy, and I think your process is super interesting, and hopefully our audience can kind of take some of that. And even with white paper, and you can't, like, even I look at this stuff all day, and like if you showed me a sheet of Cougar and a sheet of Lynx or whatever, I probably couldn't even tell the difference from looking at it. But I've been at the printer enough, and do this, like next time you go to your printer and you're printing on Lynx and Cougar, and have them run both through, and Husky, have them run all three through, and look at it just off the press, and you'll see the difference. And it has some of it has a lot to do with what you see when you're looking at it, but a lot of it just has to do with how it runs. We've had random things, like certain like sometimes you'll get the end of a batch and then the beginning of the next batch, and like the color is wildly different between two batches, even which looks fine until you're selling a 3-pack that half the one of the books is a slightly different color. It's something no one would ever notice, but you just but then that happens once, and you make sure it never happens again. We made tons of mistakes every time. There's, I always say, like, every single book we've done, I can look at and find some huge glaring thing that I hate about it that I could point out to someone that no one else would ever notice. So, or hopefully no one else would ever notice. But there's, even, there's, like, even with white paper, like I wish there was kind of this race to make the brightest white for a long time. And luckily that's kind of chilled out a little bit, because bright white is nice, but there's so many other whites. And basically there's bright white, and then there's kind of a couple maybe other variations of white, and then there's, what do they call it, like that gross 70s, what I was gonna say balanced white, or
no like 70s stationary white. What is that called? Like almost every company has it, and I don't even know who buys it. It's like just that yellowish gross, like off-white. I'm blanking out on the name.
Like
it's
not a newsprint,
like natural.
No, I mean, like natural. I think like Finch calls it natural, and that's a pretty good color. But what is ivory? I guess maybe ivory.
Yes.
Like almost every paper company like has ivory, and it's just the grossest color. And it's like there are 1,000 shades of white. Why is it ivory? Like I don't know. And I guess there's probably just old school businesses that keep buying that stuff up. But but yeah, like to get a nice like there are a few natural whites now, but they're either, you know, there's not a lot of like off whites to choose from, and that's a bummer because we would use a lot more of that.
I hear that from a lot of designers. This may seem like a shameless plug, but it is not.
Yeah.
Cougar Natural has
Yeah.
got to be one of the most universally appealing natural shades of whites, at least among our design clients that we work with. It's a really pleasing shade, not too yellow, where a lot of them can be super yellow.
I think that yellow, and it, you know, and even it's hard to even print like a 4-color, you know, you're getting into printing, like if you're trying to print a 4-color off-white background on something, it gets to be, you know, just on, you know, it's so hard to keep that color consistent because you're dealing with like 4% yellow and 3% black and stuff, and there's, so I mean, Cougar Natural is real nice for that, but even something like more off-white, like a, you know, not beige, but, you know, like aged looking papers or something would be nice too. And there's really, there's a few out there, but not much. But, you know, but again, even, just looking at that texture, I mean, we looked at doing new body, we were using Wausau actually originally at the very beginning, and then they shut down not long after that. And that's when we use Finch for a lot of inside stuff now. And that was largely just because our printer used Finch and we tried it. And we sent out, I remember I got, I think 6 or 8 different samples and labeled them blind 1 to 6 and sent them out to 10 users to see, you know, like, because people, you know, like our users obviously are fanatical about it. And like, we'll get people like, oh, I got this book and something's wrong with the paper this time. I don't know what you guys did. And it's like, you know, paper varies batch to batch a little, but we did not change the paper. But we sent out 6 samples to 6 different users. And, you know, we sent it to some fountain pen people and some just, you know, normal users and some artists that had, you know, been using watercolor and stuff. And got our, you know, and asked them to rate all the papers 1 to 6, got it back, and there was 0 consensus. It was completely random. Like I made a graph of it. It was just do, 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 do. So, you know, everybody wants something different from paper, and really the only thing you can do is find, you know, test everything, try different brands, try different lines and different weights, and see what works best for what you're doing. And, you know, and you know, ask your printer. The printers know this stuff. The printers, you know, like the printer. You know, there's certain papers, my printer, you know, if I say, can we use this? My printer's like, you know, and it's not about budget, or it's not about dealing with the company. It's just, they know printing that certain paper maybe isn't going to go well, you know, and they'll tell you, and you got to listen to them. Or, you know, what you're trying to do isn't going to work on that paper. And, you know, all of our printers we work with are like that. Like, we're just very close friends with them, and they've given us good ideas for, you know, like they'll do a job for another client, show it to us and be like, you know, hey, look what we did for these guys. You know, so these ideas come from everywhere, and taking advice from experts like that is a big deal because they know what they're talking about.
I think that's a great point. Inspiration is everywhere. And whether that is starting, and this is what I love about your brand, like, to me, it's an analog brand. I mean, it's a very modern American brand. It's amazing what you guys have done in, did you say 2007 is when it first? Okay, so 13 years, and that's pretty, I mean, like, I want to say that was when the iPhone was first starting
around then,
out.
yeah.
So it's just, I love how you remain true to your roots. You definitely get a feel, you know what that brand is, that you love tactility, ink on paper, and you manage to keep it fresh with those, you know, with the limited edition series. And that's a hard thing. So I don't know. I'm a huge fan. I've been a huge fan. My husband's a huge fan. Like, the tools work. Not only are they beautiful, but they work. So, beautiful utility. I don't know, but that's
all for that. That's a compliment. Yeah, it's funny. I like, not to talk smack about a competitor, but Moleskine, people think Moleskine goes way back. They started in 1997, which surprises even me. They're 10 years older than we are. So Moleskine was only 10 years old when we started. And it seemed like they've been ubiquitous and everywhere forever. So we're not nearly as big as they are, and we're still kind of keeping things small and fun. But yeah, like, you know, it's just funny we've been around so long, and it's just still growing, still going well. We're navigating the pandemic pretty well. Like, I think people are staying home and ordering stuff a lot, so we've been doing pretty well. You know, we lost a lot of wholesale orders right at the beginning and tons of custom work, but that's starting to pick up again. So we've been doing all right. It's, you know, we've mostly been working from home, and then we normally, like, when edition comes out, we'll have 6 or 8 people come in and help us pack to get caught up with orders. But as it is now, we can't have a ton of people at the office at once. So we have stations spread out all over the office to pack and ship. And we've all been going in, you know, a few hours here and there just to keep everything caught up. So even Jim's been packing more than anyone lately. So that's saying something.
Packing is hard stuff. I'll say that.
If we could figure out a way to do this, I mean, we've talked about maybe finding an outside contractor to handle that stuff, but like, I don't know, and for customer, doing the customer service and doing that ourselves, it feels like part of it, you know, like it's being involved with it. And it's neat just to pack orders and you're like, what was this guy thinking when he ordered this and this, you know, it helps you connect with the customer. It's funny. I don't know. It's, you know, I wouldn't want to pack orders all day. And I know the people that do it have a tough job, but it's good to get in there and do it sometimes at least.
It is. I think it speaks to your product, and this may sound, I don't know, it's not going to sound right, but like just the love and care that goes into it. Like it does feel crafted for me when I buy them or when I receive them. And I love that. And I think that's another one of the things that is most attractive about the Field Notes brand. But I'm so excited. I'm so excited that you guys were able to do this today and join us for the meetup. You know, I think our some of our attendees are in for a big treat when they see these in real life. And I, for one, cannot wait to see how my pencil feels on the, did you guys use Cougar for the inside of this? I think that's what you said.
No, of letterpress? No,
for the,
on the,
for
mile
the,
marker?
Yes.
Mile marker is links.
Links.
Yep.
Okay. I'm gonna try them out with my pencil and see which one I like. But I won't send a nasty letter.
We've used links a lot. We ended up, for whatever reason, using that for a lot of the custom jobs have links, and we're using it more and more. We're looking at one of our printers, I guess, like, you know, just it's their floor stock and it's easier, so it would probably cut some cost for us to use that rather than, you know, it's, again, like, it's weird. Some of the decisions are real conscious, and then, like, you know, something as big as that just sort of was like what was around when we started doing it. So honestly, we're trying to mix it up, and then you don't want to change it because people are you know, people are used to it. And if we change it, like, I didn't really talk about, there's like a group on Facebook called the Field Nuts that just sit around and talk about us all day. And it's like disturbing to go in there. It's nice. Like, it's fun watching the release come out, but I got to stay out of there because it's, you know, and then like the release comes out, like we just did the letterpress one, and it's just like, these are great. These are great. And then like one snarky comment, you're like, that's all you think about. So it's hard to read your own press, but yeah, like, you know, even if we didn't say anything about it, just we list all the specifications in each book on the back cover, you know, exactly what papers and printers and everything we use, so people notice that stuff. And the second we change something, we hear about it, definitely.
I get it. People are very loyal and rabid about the products and brands they love. So
it was nice to hear you say, you know, that they feel personal and made just for you is great to hear, because like when you're on the other end of it and just seeing pallets of this stuff moving around, you start to wonder if people are actually like falling for it anymore, but I guess they are.
Yeah, well, you guys do a great job, especially with the storytelling aspect. I know you'd mentioned you do a film with each edition, but I do feel like that's such an important part of, for me, feeling, getting that depth and that understanding with each edition and a connection to the brand. I love that. That's one of the things that I feel most hopeful for coming out of this pandemic, is I think it has forced all of us, brands included, to take a look, to stop selling all the time and just be real and connect.
Yeah.
You guys have done that from day one.
Yeah, it was fun. Like Aaron has such a personality, and after working with him for 13 years now, like when I first met him, it kind of felt like an actor gimmick, and now that I know him well enough, like he's like that all the time. That's like, you see, what you see is what you get, which is a compliment in this case. But he sort of had this voice going into it, this kind of gee whiz, like Midwestern, like curse once in a while kind of voice going into it. And we all kind of learned to emulate that in the copywriting, and that's always worked pretty well. And it's funny, like we can all kind of talk like Aaron when we have to now. Yeah, and just all the details, like, like we all do a little copywriting, we all do a little proofreading, and it's, it sort of fell to certain people to kind of be in charge of that, but it all gets mixed up a little bit. And it's nice that we've all sort of locked down on this style, this writing style, and this voice for our company that we can all kind of emulate. Well,
it definitely resonates in your products. Okay, So I've got one more question. It looks like it was sent to me privately. Luke is asking, maybe you can talk about this a little bit. In terms of I think you said you do some private label editions. What do brands like Starbucks and Carhartt like about using the field notes for their customers? Have you gotten feedback on that?
Yeah, it's weird. It started out with a few, like a few friends company. I think maybe the first one we did was, is it Jeffrey Zeldman did a list apart, and he did an event called an event apart, and he was just one of our early fans, and he wanted to get some with his logo on the back, and we were going on press with the regular ones, and we're like, well, we'll just print, on the sheet of 18 books, we'll just do one with an event apart on the back, and cut it out and send those to you. And then that sort of turned into, over time, doing more and more of these custom jobs, where now we print blank covers, we print blank inside covers, and then we can print a sheet with a few different custom jobs at once, so it brings the price down and the turnaround time down a little bit. So most of those simple customs where it's just a logo, a black logo on the back of craft paper, it's a lot of like school departments, and it's almost always like a fan, like someone that uses field notes that just wants to like get more people using them, because obviously anyone, there's the I think like PS Print, you can go on and order custom notebooks on there. There's actually our original printer in Portland, I don't want to say their name because they're our sworn enemy now. No, I'm just kidding. But they, after we took the work from them because we just had to do it in Chicago. By the time by the time we settled doing everything here, it wasn't worth having stuff shipped from Portland. And they started another company doing essentially that, making exactly field notes style notebooks with, whatever artwork you wanted on it, which is great. That's so there's a lot of other people you could go to, or you could just go to any printer and have them made without using our branding. So it is weird that people would pay us to have, it's like ordering your own product and having another brand name on it. It says a lot. It's neat for us to see that people actually want our brand name on their product. That's cool to us. And I think it's just, there's that cachet of it being an official field notes of, like we got to work with them, and here's our field notes. And, like I said, people buy, sell, and trade these things. So, there's some collectability to it, which we kind of try to avoid using that as a selling point. But I think, like anyone that's doing a custom job with us knows that there's this crowd of maybe 1,000 or a couple thousand people that buy everything we make. So they're going to at least sell that many of them. Like we did one for, and then a lot of Aaron's friends brand, Aaron does a lot of design work and identity work. So a lot of those people and his friends and bands and stuff come to us. Wilco, we have several connections to Wilco, but like Jim's kids went to school with Spencer Tweedy, and Mark Greenberg, our really good friend, is their studio manager. So, that just sort of happened organically. So in most cases, it starts with either a friendship or someone being aware of our brand, and Urban Outfitters, we did one with them a long time ago, and then they just immediately started printing their own, and selling their own brand, which, like fine. But it's, like any of these brands could go out and print their own notebooks and do whatever the heck they want, but they want to work with us, and they want to have our design influence on it, and they want to have our creative team involved in it. And so those keep coming in. And again, like we don't do much sales. We don't cold call shops. We don't call, it's just, this is all just people calling us, like both for retail and for custom jobs. Like we're basically, just trying to keep up with all the calls we're getting, which is great. It's, we probably could, even going back to the agency days with Jim, it was never about growing fast. It was about finding work we like doing and keeping a healthy balance, and, and going home at 5. So it's, that's one of the great things about the job is there's not this, if we sold out to a venture capitalist or something, there would suddenly be this big rush to grow the company bigger and find new markets and all this stuff. And it's, been organically growing every year. And I think that's worked much better for us. It's, none of us are trying to get super rich. We just want to have a rewarding life,
Right. Do what you love. And, honestly, to me, it just speaks to your brand's values, and people, that resonates with people. People want to collaborate with people that they perceive.
Yeah.
Share that, right? And
yeah.
So you're doing all the right things. I don't need me to tell you that, but you are. Well, thank you so much. This has been really just a treat for us. We're getting a ton of great. My phone's blowing up as this has been going on.
Well, I'm happy. I don't know if there's more questions, shout them out. I don't have to be anywhere. I don't know if you guys need to shut this down or anything.
No.
I'm looking through the comments. I think I kind of got most of it here. Oh, here's Peter asking, when was the first time we had to bring on a new team member? There are 10 of us there. 4 of us have been there over 20 years. And then I think almost everyone else has been there at least 5 or 10. There's a couple. The newest person is probably Erica, and I think she's been there 5 now. And we bring in pack and ship people to help during rushes, but as far as like a full-time person, it's been a while, and which is funny. And it's almost all so. It's, you know, it's like I always say it's like a family in good ways and in bad ways. Like we've all been like, to work with someone for 20 years is like, you really get to know them, and it's you know, we all know what each other are about and what our strengths and weaknesses are, and it, you know, it works out. And it's not always, you know, it looks glamorous and fun, and it is a lot of the time, but you know, it's like any office too. We've got work to do, and we clash and everything, you know, there's, you know, and we miss deadlines and we get freaked out and we work late once in a while, but it's overall, yeah, it's a pretty sweet gig.
I love that. Anybody else?
When Bob asked if paper has ever ignited the idea of an edition, that was definitely the French craft tone. You know, we were like, whatever we do next, we're doing it on this paper. We did one called, well, the paper, the cherry paper was a company that got in touch with us, and you know, once we saw that, obviously we wanted to do that, and that was a no-brainer. You know, sometimes it was in the case of, we did one called Unexposed, which was a white book with screen print ink that changed color to blue when it was exposed to UV rays, like out in the sun. So that was a case where we saw, you know, we found out about that ink and we're like, well, we got to use this, you know, and built the theme. So sometimes, yeah, sometimes we kind of start with the theme and then find the materials to do that theme. Other times we'll start with materials and find a theme that works with those materials. It goes both ways. Any other questions?
There was one from Dave, and it's how many ideas for editions do you get sent in a week?
Get sent, oh, from outside? A few. I mean, I'd say, you know, a few, like 3 or 4, maybe a week. We get a lot of artists maybe that see like editions we did with artists and say like, oh, I do art, you know, could you use mine? And you know, then it's always good stuff. And but it's just like, we, you know, like I said, we're small and we can only do so much stuff, and we've got so many ideas. Like it's hard to keep up with our own ideas. Usually when we get unsolicited ideas, I kind of try to say like, I don't even really want to look at this because I don't want. And it has happened many, like way more than you would ever possibly imagine. Someone will send us, hey, why don't you do this? And it's something we're 3/4 of the way finished with, you know? And it's like, if I even write back to this email, like this person's going to think we stole their idea. And it's just crazy. Like how many, you know, especially with field nuts, like they'll sit there all day and speculate about on Facebook, speculating about what the next edition is going to be. And then every single time someone's right, because there's so many guesses, like, so, you know, the blind squirrel finds a nut once in a while. And so getting unsolicited ideas is kind of frustrating, because like we've thought of a lot of ideas, and there's, you know, I'm sure there's a lot we haven't, but you know, just about anything you could think of off the top of your head, we've probably at least talked about it at some point. And we've, you know, there's editions we've got 3/4 of the way into and then changed our mind. You know, like someday we'll do a book of all the editions that almost happened. There was one
that would be fun.
One of my favorites was that we were going to do a CMYK edition with a cyan, magenta, yellow, and black book. And the best part was like the black book would be utterly useless because you can write in it. But that would be like the subscriber bonus probably. But we just couldn't find, we didn't want to print CMYK ink. We wanted to use paper that was the right colors, and we couldn't really get the right color paper nailed down, but I still want to do something with that someday. Something like our campfire edition, the way the illustrations or the photos turned out on there, we went through 1,000 different illustration styles and color palettes and everything. Like it was, and like, yeah, I could do a whole book of just different variations on what campfire ended up being. And so it's a lot of just playing around with stuff till we settle on something. The process of the NASA modules. Yeah, that was, I mean, we kind of had the idea that would be a neat thing to include with it. I don't even know where the idea came from originally. Probably, I think Jim thought of it. I don't know what sparked him on that, but it was, there are a lot of papercraft models if you look online, even of those specific things, but to find, you know, we wanted to do them in, you know, kind of our Aaron calls his style thick lines, you know, that sort of illustration style. This is, I just grabbed this cup, but this is the Cincinnati Stingers logo from the 70s. That was a good example of it. But, you know, to do those illustrations kind of in Aaron's style, which I'm really good at copying Aaron's design style now too. Although did he, I can't even remember if he did those or I did. That's how messed up that is. I mean, I did the, I know I definitely, I think I did all the die cut and got that all figured out. And then he kind of roughed in an illustration and then I finished it up, which is usually how it works. But he, yeah, like to get the original, you know, like we want to do these 3 ships that has to fit. I think they were 5 by 6 by 9 maybe cards, because it has to fit, you know, we always got to think, will it fit in the subscription box? Will it fit in the mailers we use? Like we don't want to have to you know, figure out packaging differently for everything. You know, if we need to shove 4 of them in a box with a space pen and a Wilco box set, are they going to get destroyed? So we ended up doing like a cardboard backing with like a little bracket that held the book in there with these three die cut sheets that you'd punch out the model. So they all had to fit on that same size. We wanted to keep them each to 3 colors. I think what the deal, this is like, just from design, like the weird way you come to things, but each of them have 2 of the same colors and 1 extra color. And that was because we figured we could print them all on a 6-color press with like the 2 original or a 5-color press, you know, and do a different color on each one, but then use 2 of the same colors too.